All right, hello everyone. Welcome to a Wolfram Language Design Review. This is actually one we don't usually live stream, but today we're talking about language design, so we are. We are going to be talking about uh, integration of external languages, particularly Python, and uh, whoever is sharing, is that Ricardo or Roman? Why don't you take it away and describe what we're talking about here? Nope. Who is sharing?
Ricardo's in.
Hello, hi everyone. So basically we are doing an incremental improvement of external evaluate. Specifically, we are talking about external object. This is actually something that is generic to every evaluator, not only Python. But we are demoing Python today mostly, and some SQL. So basically, if we don't have a direct translation to the Wolfram language object. So for example, in this case, what I'm doing is to import and work with a library that allows you to work with IP address. When you execute this command, you're basically referring to a Python module, and we don't have an equivalent for to represent this in Wolfram language, so you're getting back an external object. Now we are adding more capabilities to the external object. So primarily is the ability to send it back to the evaluator, something that unfortunately you were not able to do it before. And what we are also adding are those method call that we that we are going to present today. So let's say that you execute an external evaluate call that returns to you a module in Python. And then you want to write the equivalent of this Python code. So basically calling a method and passing a string. You can do it by doing lib, so the object that you already referred to, and then you do method call, and then you pass the name of the method and all the arguments in a positional way. And this gives you back another external object because this IP address class is not something that we understand as well. And so you're getting back now another external object. And now let's say that we want to get an attribute of this object. So for example, the version of the IP, in this case is an IP4.
Hold on,
What
hold
you,
on. I mean,
Mhm.
question. I mean, first
Right,
of all, this is similar to the way that we're doing data structures of having,
right.
uh, and
Indeed.
I mean, next question, is there a pretty print that a typical Python object has for itself? Is one of the methods typically a pretty print type thing or not?
We can add it. Yes, there is a thing that is called rep, and basically it's what you see in the terminal. Um,
Okay,
and
so
and
then we
and
could
and every
display that in the
object.
external object
We
summary
we
box.
can decide to display it. Yes.
Seems useful to me.
Yes. I mean the problem is that this is a reference to an object. So when you do something like this, obviously you are doing an operation that might be expensive. It depends on the implementation of the object. Most of the time when you're asking for the rep, which is something that is coming in the terminal, is not something that is terribly expensive. But sometimes it can be, for example, I don't know, SQL Alchemy or Django, they provide connection wrapper to a database. When you do a rep of that object, that is actually triggering a database call.
Can
But
we
I
give a
mean,
timeout? Can we do a timeout? Can we try that call? And if it takes more than, half a second or something, we give up?
um, yeah, I mean, we could, and we might decide to do it only in an interactive session.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
need to do it otherwise.
Yeah, or
Right.
hide it behind the plus sign, right? For more
Yeah,
safe.
but
Right.
then basically interacting with the boxes will trigger an evaluator call, which is something that we don't usually do in
Yeah.
boxes.
I think we shouldn't do that, but I think the idea of having a timeout seems useful to me. If we can do that, if that's easy engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Because what
Yeah, I
could go
need
wrong? I
to.
mean, if we have a timeout, if we can really time it out after half a second or something, it's not going to be that
Right,
bad.
right.
Question. In that initial thing,
Mhm.
the Python session prologue and so on,
Yes.
what other things do we have in that when we have start external session, what other decoration do we have to the registered name, in this case Python? I mean,
So the available things are so there is session prologue, epilogue, there is a command prologue, a command epilogue. Then there is the actual description of the evaluator, so the path, or you know, the new thing that we have done in version 14, where basically there is an association, etc.
yeah, why aren't we putting the session prologue in the association? I don't understand why we have to put. I mean, that Python thing is going to the registered evaluator, registered external evaluator that is called Python, and we're
Well, this is
decorating that.
on a session basis. Maybe you only want this on a session base.
No, I
when you
understand
do
that, but
this.
we've got two different things. We've got the association that represents the evaluator, and then we've got the decoration to that, which is the prologue that might be local to the session, right?
Right, but such so the association that describes Python is something that is for now is Python specific. On the other hand, session prologue is generic, is for every evaluator, which is why it's not inside the you know, the environment or evaluator, sorry, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to separate the specification of the evaluator with things like session
Oh,
prologue.
no, I
which might
agree. I agree. I'm just asking about the syntax of this list with rules and so on, whether that's an actual, you know, properly promoted option to start external session or what it is. I don't remember
Well,
what else we put in that
well,
goes
in
in that
theory,
list.
the full form is an association. You should write system goes to Python and then all those things. And so this is just syntax sugar for the full form. There is an actual association, etc. But I'm not
I
sure
don't
what
have an
you are.
objection to it. Okay,
Mhm.
keep going.
Okay. So we are saying you get an address, you want to access something else, you do get attribute. Get attribute is a way to get an attribute and return the value. Again, you can return reverse pointer, etc. Now, for example, here we are instantiating a IP network range, and then we are calling this method. So basically what we're doing here is to call host. So now this is returning a list of all addresses that, again, we don't know how to translate it, but we are returning to an external object. Now, you see, this is the function that I was talking about, rep. Basically, rep is a function that gives you whatever, you know, is throwing out in the terminal Python. And what you can do now is to do something like map of this function with all the hosts, and this is returning the string representation of this object. It's important to notice that this one it's one call. Basically,
I
we
don't understand that syntax at all. I mean, external value, what does that arrow mean?
Okay, so in external value, this is a function call. So this is syntax sugar for doing roughly. Let me make sure
Well, he
that I'm
types this out,
evaluating.
Stephen. That's shorthand for function arrow arguments. That's
Call,
what that is.
and then so I need to so no, I need to call map. So I need to do external evaluate of map. And then I need to call map with rep and then all the hosts. And I think this should work if there wasn't a bug.
The head has to be
Probably
mapped. You change
Hmm?
the head of the you have
Oh.
wrapper.
Yes, but this is probably something I'm not evaluating all the code. probably.
Host is probably not evaluated.
Okay, well, not sure what it is, but basically this will be the equivalent.
I
Yeah.
don't understand that syntax. So you're saying that in external
So this
evaluate
is
in
a
general,
this
I know
is
what
this is
that's a function and
something.
those are its arguments. I just
Okay.
don't understand the syntax.
Okay, but this is the syntax that already exists. Basically, this is function call. So basically, this is map, and this will be the equivalent of writing map with rep and then all the hosts here.
But can't you do that with the string template as well?
You would.
But yeah, I guess my question is more like, do these external objects and external functions work by using
Yeah,
the
they do.
backtick syntax? Because
Yeah.
I would reach for that, not knowing about this arrow syntax.
Right.
And I don't understand what the relationship between this and the angle bracket star syntax where we get callback to Wolfram language is. Because this is basically having to take a Wolfram language object, external object, for example, and provide it as an argument to map. So why isn't this something like map and then angle bracket star external object, blah, blah, blah?
Angle bracket. You could do that as well. You can do that as well, but you couldn't do it if those were all objects, right? So if you, because this is working as well. So if you now have an external function here, right, you can also do this one. And obviously you can call the function as well, but you know, for more complex operation, basically if you're using this syntax, you don't deal with
Well, what
strings at
happens
all.
if I have a
You're only-
nested function?
It
That
works.
syntax is going to blow it up. What's that?
No, because the syntax for rule doesn't work inside. It only works for the
I know, that's what I'm saying. If you have a nested
Yeah.
function, you can't use that. But let me just understand.
Mhm.
Could you just write out map, you know, that instead of the map, angle
Mhm.
bracket, you know, that map is a top level thing. So, you know, you've had a function called map. So instead of the map, do angle bracket star of the map. The word map, replace the word map. Replace the word map by angle bracket star map.
Yeah.
Okay, since you've defined map up above to
Yes,
be the
this will
external
work.
function,
This
that
will
will
work as
work.
well. Yes, this will work as well. But I don't know if this is more readable. This
No,
one.
it's not.
But you can do it.
I'm just trying to understand. Okay, so
Yes.
just so we're understanding
Mhm.
this,
You can do it as well.
and I mean in terms of syntactically typing it in. Okay, so what we're saying is each one of those, when it comes in, it will be converted to the appropriate native Python thing, so that the
Yes.
evaluation can take place.
It will be refetched from the original session, replaced, and yes, the evaluation will be done, and then it returns the result.
Okay, so that arrow thing
Mhm.
is merely a shorthand for function application.
Yes. Yes.
In
Basically,
this
Such
case,
a weird
Ricardo,
shorthand.
yeah, I agree. Could
so
you write just
when you have
map of,
rep, then this rep you can call it with number 2, for example, and this is now a string of the number 2. You can call it with map, and this should give, I don't know why this is not working.
so you can't call map of rep or comma hosts?
I have no idea. But basically this will give you the representation of the function.
Yeah, so why is it, I mean, why can't you in the top level code just say map of, you know,
Yeah.
repa comma hosts as a piece of Wolfram language code? Map,
Mhm.
map.
Mhm.
No,
You can do that as well. Yes, you can do that as
so
well.
let's see it work.
Yes.
Comma host.
Unfortunately, I have no idea. Like,
Okay, so there's a
unfortunately,
bug
today
here.
yes, I have redone the whole implementation because we
Okay, fine.
changed the design and
Of course, because we're doing a review, so you redo it today.
Because you broke it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ricardo,
but that
why
should
is that
work.
call? Why
yes,
is that call instead of
that was
method call?
working this morning.
Okay.
What? What did
Sorry,
you
say
say?
that again. I mean, that to me is the
No,
most elegant
Ricardo.
version of this. Go ahead.
Ricardo?
Mhm.
Yeah. Why is that call in 50? Why is that call and not method call? Does it need to be call? Is that different than, is this like not a
Oh.
regular method call, or is it just a method call?
No, okay. So since this is a function, you directly call the function with arguments. And so yeah, I'm really not sure why it's not working.
I mean,
unfortunately.
Not
The fact
message.
that you can take a Python function,
But the
just-
result is equivalent to this one. The result will be equivalent to this one.
no, I understand that, but that's wonderful. I mean, that's much better than having to write external evaluate of the evaluator, comma, whatever. The fact
Right.
that you've got that, and I mean, presumably we've got good messaging if the evaluator in the map and the repr and the hosts and so on doesn't match. See what I'm saying? I mean, if you said map and I got that from a Python 3 session and I've got a
Right.
repr from a Python 4 session and they don't match, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yes, so basically there will be a message that says, you know, that the object with ID whatever doesn't exist in the current session, and yes, we
Okay,
need
but
to.
just try and clean
Mhm.
those messages, because to
Yes.
me, this is a very nice way to do things, to just say, I've got a function, and oh, by the way, it's an external function.
Right.
It happens to be an external function, but I can treat it just like, you know, in other words,
Yes.
the fact that you can, so, I mean, right, I mean, it's very nice. So in other words, if you say, repa could try it, map, so to say the lowercase map,
Mhm.
and then say, instead of hosts there, say map repr, comma, range of 10. Range of 10. That should work, right? It should convert each. Go ahead.
That should work. It's not sure why it's not working. Let me try it here. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a bug in external function. Yeah, here it's working. But yes,
Okay.
I will fix this thing.
Because that's
Basically,
very beautiful. I mean, that the fact you can just treat, you know, in other words, an external function is just like a function, and you can use it in place of a function, and it does automatic conversion of types on the way in, etc.
right.
But that's
It's lovely.
also the
And-
way
and
that's the
that-
way things work right now too. I mean,
Yes,
this is
yes. This is something that already exists. What I'm adding here is the fact that you can put an external function here and it will just work, even with the old syntax. And so now you can
Yeah,
put
but I-
objects, functions, etc., and the old syntax with rule, etc., everything works now.
Okay, but I don't really believe
Mhm.
in that rule syntax. What I do believe in is if you had, instead of range of 10, you had some list of objects like hosts, for example, the fact
Yes.
that works is non-trivial and lovely.
Mhm. And it will be converted in one backend operation, so it will be done just in one shot when you're doing it like this.
Okay.
Another thing that you can do so with the system is the ability, and we want a way to chain multiple calls. So basically, let's start again from IP address, and let's say that this is something that we wrote before, right? You do IP address
Yeah, I
blah,
get
blah,
it.
blah, blah,
Yep.
and then you get the version. Now let's say that there is an error, and I'm simulating an error by doing a spelling mistake here.
Yep.
You do it on the first one, and what happens is that you're getting a failure, and now you're calling the failure with sub values. And in theory, you should be handling the error that are coming out at every step. That is both a problem in efficiency because this thing is doing two
I don't
calls.
understand. Why aren't you just
Mhm.
making a thing called external failure that does the right thing with the sub values?
Oh, well, we could, but that would be a big, yeah,
Okay, but you have a different idea.
backward incompatible change. Yeah, no, we cannot really do that.
Well, are you sure it's not a good idea? I mean,
Yeah, but that would be a big
okay, all right, fine.
backward
Keep going. Keep
change.
going. What were you?
And so what we have done is that you can chain calls by using a list instead. And
Ugh.
so now what you're doing is that this guy will basically throw one error. The first
Look,
one
I'm
that
not really
happens.
that keen on this kind of weird sort of syntax within syntax type thing. I mean, what with between the arrow and this, it's like you're learning a whole new language to be able to make these calls, and that's just not what we want.
I know, but if
It's not what we
those
want.
things are already in place, and the best we can do now is to underlegate
I
them.
don't agree with this. I don't agree. I mean,
Well, we have
so-
something similar in data sets, right? Where you can just write about just about anything. There's a lot of new ideas in that one argument of a data set where you can put in queries and selects and everything.
I know it's not the best design.
Mhm.
Yeah,
if-
but this is really like a big requirement of this system
Yeah.
because we have been debating this thing endlessly, and the reason why you want to do that is because otherwise you will need to wrap failure.
I
for
understand.
every
What would
step,
happen if we had a
and
concept called external failure? Just
that
think that
basically
through for a
everything
second.
that is working on that is doing underscore failure wouldn't work anymore.
Well,
And
unless,
yeah.
but most things like confirm, for example, it
Yes,
has a
most
list
things
of.
like failure queue and stuff like that will work, obviously, but yeah. But I'm not sure, like an external failure in any case, why do you think it will solve the problem? In the end, the external failure will have properties that you need to extract, and it will have a system that is similar to this one, so it doesn't really solve the problem, right?
Well, no, wait. How are you doing? I mean, I don't understand what you're doing to do that second thing. Where does it pick up? So it's running both of those things together. The first one failures out,
Yes.
and then what? But then the whole point
Then
is
this guy
that
throws an exception, and
Right, and it eats it, and the second one eats it. So in other words, external failure would just say, oh, I've got subvalues, ignore the subvalues, I already had an exception. So I'm saying the problem that you have is on line
yes,
57.
I
that it
understand, but
doesn't ignore
then
the
this
subvalues.
external failure, you want to access it programmatically, and if you don't do it with subvalues, how would you do it?
Well,
I mean,
fair
the
enough.
failure will have
okay, so
information
then,
that you need to access
okay,
programmatically, like
so we
this
got a
one.
design issue here. Okay, so just, you know, I'm not buying the fact that we have to invent this weird, every time we invent one of these weird things that requires people to memorize yet another kind of weird structure that isn't our standard structure, we lose a large fraction of people.
I mean, it is a form of function composition, and I wonder whether we could. There was a better way to represent this. I mean, the basic idea that you have only one round trip to Python, and you don't have to worry about intermediate failures, I think is very worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree. But so, all right, look, you're basically saying that method call allows, sorry, your mouse is right on the place where I need to see what's going on. Okay. You're basically saying that an external object can take, it's really weird. I mean, it's kind of like
The only alternative that we got here is that basically that the original design was entirely lazy, and so all those calls will always returning external object, and then you need to explicitly send it to evaluator. And that was done in order to avoid this specific problem, error handling and error propagation.
Yeah, it seems silly.
But then you will need to wrap it every time in external evaluate, and
Yeah,
this is
no, it's silly. It's silly.
Yeah.
How far down do our subvalues go?
One level.
Only one level, yeah.
That's the thing we wanted to fix for 35 years.
And up values, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to understand here. What is the syntax? If you had only one of these, is it in a list? You're doing method call and that's arguments in a list. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean the alternative is to only do this syntax, which was my original preference. But then this is basically a syntax sugar to do this one.
So we've got wait a minute. We've got that varargs form. Oh my gosh.
Riccardo, this method call and get attribute thing, do we need them?
Do you? Sorry?
Do we need method call and get attribute? Like I understand that
yes, you need.
Python is not Java, but this is like if you know how to use objects in JLink, this is like again entirely new. Just even having method call is entirely new.
Okay, so let me. We can go back to the Stephen. We will go back to this issue. We'll continue for a little second here. The idea is that those methods, those APIs, the first argument is going to be something that is specific to the evaluator. We can, get attribute and set attribute is something that probably is common to a lot of them, like Node.js or whatever. But for example, it doesn't really make sense in SQL, right, or in other system. And so the overall idea is that the evaluator defines and document those methods. They can be Python specific. We can decide whether we want to go and put a lot of Python specific things or having just a small set of standardized things. But what we're doing is, for example, set attribute and get attribute, get item and set item. There is also a way to explicitly set the return type. This is something that, for example, is Python specific. Every object got a length, and we could have a length method that is returning the length of the object.
Okay, so wait a minute. So somewhere there's a discovery interface that says this evaluator for its external objects defines these operations. Can I see that? Is there
excuse me, where?
No, I'm saying given that S
Yes.
whatever it is, the external session or the evaluator being used in that external session, there's
Mhm.
got to be a way that I can get a list, set attribute, get attribute, method call, blah, 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 blah. Where is that?
Yes, it could be either properties on an external object. I haven't implemented
No,
it.
no, well, that on the individual external object, but you're telling me it is global to this particular evaluator. The
Yes, it
Python
can be
N
a method
evaluator.
also of the external session object. Yes, it can
Right.
be also
So,
a
okay,
method
so
of
then
this guy.
for
Mhm.
each one of those, there is a list, just like for, how do we do that for data structure? How do you do a query for data structure, for a given data structure, like linked list? How do you know what operations you can do on a linked list?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, let's look it up. I mean,
Yep.
I still don't understand why we can't have something simpler like JLink had.
Well, I'll jump in here as being the JLink guy and liking JLink and all that. But I think that I like the method call kind of syntax here. I think we need that. I don't think the JLink model doesn't work really perfectly well for Python. And I think that we need a sort of reflection style where you're directly calling these things sort of by reflection in a sense. Here's the object, here's the operation I want to perform. It's a method call, and here's the name of the method.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like obviously this whole thing is broken now because I evaluated the whole notebook, but for SQL, you can imagine having something like this where you say return type of rows, this is not implemented, but it will be implemented. Basically, you do a select star from a huge table, you get back an external object that is a reference to the cursor. And then there are some methods that you can do over the cursor.
But you're changing fundamentally the contract of what external evaluate does, because then you're not evaluating. So if you say external evaluate or SQL select, I'm assuming that the moment
it is evaluating. It is creating a cursor on the other side.
It's just creating a cursor. It's not evaluating. So every time I do 10, then I move the cursor.
Yes.
And so when does the evaluation happen? At line 84 or 85? Kind of both. It's changing.
Here you are creating, here you are creating only a cursor, and here you are fetching and mutating the object.
Yeah, but then that thing, if you evaluate it twice, if it's really a cursor, you evaluate it twice, you get twice the different 10 things. So that is like, okay, maybe it's a useful thing to have, but it's fundamentally different to what we had before in external evaluate of SQL.
Yes, but right now in external evaluate, you cannot iterate a huge table, and this is a way to do it.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying, this is useful, but it's a different syntax.
But yeah, because the return type is an external object, and that is mutable, right?
Yeah, the overall idea is that external object is something on the other side that is mutable.
But it doesn't conflict with the existing usage, right, Carlo? This is a new thing for working with objects, and it doesn't conflict with the old use of external evaluator for SQL, does it?
Because of that arrow external object.
Well,
that's a return type thing. I mean,
so that's the return type.
Yes.
That's the return type.
First of all, I think it's confusing that the modifier for what it gets returned is in the first argument. Secondly,
it can be also in this other thing.
And the second thing is that a cursor is an iterator, and I think it's very important that we introduce iterators consistently throughout the language, not
exactly. I wanted to say
not
exactly
have something that's an external object that sometimes can behave like an iterator, sometimes doesn't.
Exactly.
But external object is something that is generic to the framework, Carlo. I mean, the SQL can define in the future when we have iterators, when they're ready, whatever. You can have another return type here that says iterator.
I think it's overgeneralization.
And it's going to be
languages I think languages are substantially different. We are now trying to shoehorn some very specific SQL-like concepts into this model of objects, which, I don't think that particular example is really good for the SQL. This requires a separate thought how to do this. It's a special case.
Well, I don't particularly agree with this statement, but this is just an example to say that in external evaluate there are a lot of different systems, and different system can have different methods, and this is what I was going for. So that basically those APIs are going to be different for every system. Now we can decide that we are not exposing external object at the beginning in SQL. I'm not sure why, because I think it's a great thing to have, because waiting for iterators is going to take a lot of time. On the other end, this thing is ready and you can work with it tomorrow, and allows to get things done. So the moment we have iterator, we can just have iterator here. So I don't really see a problem here.
Well, I think we can discuss it in a different maybe setting, because I think it's a deeper discussion that for this overview. But my point is that different languages are substantially different, and external object, to my mind, is more or less a reference to something that exists on the other side as a mutable object. So,
which is a cursor. Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe, but I would say it's a much less typical example than for languages like Python. It's a much more special case. That's my point, and it has to be done with care.
Right.
Because the stateful objects in SQL are very different from stateful objects in other languages. Very, very different.
Right, but in any case, the overall discussion here was to say that we need this first argument, because this first argument is going to be substantially different and allows you to do very different things in very different evaluators.
Okay, but so the concept, look, it sounds to me like external object, like external evaluate, it is introducing you to a different jungle depending on its first argument, so to speak.
Yes.
And so
some things are going to be common to every evaluator, like call, for example, is going to be function call, or get attribute is probably going to be present in a lot of them, not SQL, obviously. Eval is the method that is evaluating call code, but you probably don't have to deal with it. But yeah, there are a lot of APIs. Some are internal, some are external, and yeah, some are common to everyone, and some are not.
By the way, I will have to go in about 5 minutes, but what are the design decisions we have to make? So there are these slightly weird syntaxes for the combined that syntax on line 58, the combined multiple function call syntax.
Yes, that has to go back to the drawing board. I mean,
well, I'm not a huge fan. It looks weird to me, but I only saw this the other day. I think Sean Sharon gets the credit for suggesting this, but it solved a lot of problems.
Yes.
The minute we saw this, it was like, oh, that solves both the eager lazy problem and the issue about whether methods were called always return objects or sometimes expressions. That did solve a lot of problems.
So wait a minute. But on line 55, the not.
There is also another problem that this thing, depending on what is the return value, could return a string or an object. And now is not only about failure. This thing could return the number 2.
I get it. I'm asking a syntactic
and
question.
In this case, it will not return the number 2 because it would access.
I get it because it knows what it's doing next.
Exactly.
Okay, so my question is, on line 55, the fact that the syntax doesn't have a list there, that it's a var_args method call, is weird, given that you're going to go listing. You're going to use var_args to mean the sequence of operations there, and in the other case, so I have a question. What would happen if? Could you have something, or maybe this doesn't work, lib of method call, just lib of method call, close bracket, okay, and then a sub value of what it, okay, that's one thing, is putting that in a single list, which obviously has to work. But then this method call, open bracket after that, right, and then put the IP address and so on in there.
Okay.
Now, let's look at data structure, because data structure, I believe that data structure always does.
But then you will need to add a lot of brackets,
just
right?
let's look at what data structure does, okay? Does data structure always have no, look at how a data structure is used. Listing of data structures. Let's go to listing of data structures up at the top there. Up at the top. Up at the top.
Okay.
Now just pick a data structure. I don't know, linked list.
Okay.
Let's say whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Linked list. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's look at the examples. Okay, there. So right. So this is always operation and then arguments, right?
Right.
And it has no way, because it's always returning a data structure, and there's this consideration of erroring is not a thing. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, my original design was exactly like this. You do this operation, and you're always getting back an external object. But that requires you to basically use another call in order to see the value of the external object.
The question is, how do we package, in this case where we want to go to sort of a full form where we are putting in multiple calls there, right? The method of packaging is this weird thing where you are replacing the varargs of the original call with, list varargs. So my question is there an alternative that we can come up with for how to represent? See what I'm saying? That down there, I have to say, go ahead.
Think about your lib of method call of, maybe there's something we can.
I'm not sure about that, but listen, I think it would help a lot if that last one down there had a list around it. That one there had a list around that. No, the whole thing, all the arguments. Right? List, a list around those arguments, right? Like that. Because then at least you're not dealing with this incredible weirdness of the varargs means one thing in one case and another thing in the other case.
But then you would only allow this, right?
No,
you will not.
No, you could allow the varargs version as a courtesy.
Right.
That will be equivalent to putting it in a single list.
I see. Well,
but on the other hand, with the varargs lists, they are lists that you don't use lists in the single call form, and so
there is no ambiguity. Yeah,
there's no ambiguity.
No, I understand, because these are strings here, but they wouldn't necessarily have to be strings, right? Why can't those things, instead of strings, I have got to go, unfortunately. Why can't those things, instead of being strings, be expressions, like external objects, for example?
Well, the first thing is a string.
The first thing is
I know,
going
the first thing is a string, but what about the others?
The others, no.
But how many of them are there? Any number?
Yeah.
Well, there's a function.
I mean, the syntax is only thinly not ambiguous.
Yes, I agree with that. Thinly not ambiguous.
Yes.
Not ambiguous, but only thinly so. Yes.
That's true.
Look, we can continue workshopping this new idea of using a vararg set of lists was, we liked it for some reasons, because it solved a lot of very hard problems.
Okay,
maybe
I have
we
to
have
run.
to rethink it.
See you guys later.
Okay, all right. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.